Fallout Equestria. Heroes. By No One. Chapter 3. Bullets and Brainwaves.
We were making a table?
The filly didn't talk. After I snapped the chain that bound her to the floor, she just stared at me with those big gray eyes of hers. When I moved to leave, she got up and followed, her eyes trained on me but still never speaking. Even as we sneaked our way out of town, she followed, hiding when I hid, moving when I moved, and still quiet as a mouse. Walking through the darkness, we only had the sound of my radio to keep the silence from engulfing us.
The pro-restriction group that held last night's protest that turned violent. Celestia's Vision has denounced the event, saying that while they oppose the inequine research of the Hyzeas, violence was just stooping to their level. They also called for what they called an internal investigation on who in the Galicians ordered the Ponetrons to fire. Once again, the Hyzea and the Galicians have refused to comment. In these times of trouble, let's not forget how good we Indais have it. Have you ever felt lonely, even with all the ponies around? Here's Odyssey, telling you what that's like. Brought to you by the Moon Casino. Have you been naughty and need to be punished? Come to the Moon, the best place to be banished.
Who knows you cry for me? Love is the way I've ever been.
Sighing, I stopped. Gray clouds still blanketed the sky, and Celestia had not stopped crying. Still, it had been a long night, and my whole body ached. It'd take half a day to walk to the meeting place, and we weren't scheduled to be there until next evening. As the sun peeked over the hills, I found us a small cave and lay down. "What's your name?" I asked the filly. The filly lay down across from me, never speaking. Her coat was a light pink, so light it could have been white, and her yellow mane and tail was splashed with patches of red that looked like stains. On her left hind leg, she still wore the shackle that had chained her to the ground, because whenever I tried to take it off, she moved away. Her eyes stood out the most, though. Children shouldn't look so sad. "Serenity?" Her voice was almost a whisper. She hated me, I realized at once. Her whole life was probably jumping from one slaver to another, and to her I was just transferring her to another prison. Which was true. I couldn't help wondering who her parents were. Did slavers kill them before taking her? Did they leave her in the wasteland? Did they sell her? I'd never know the answer. The wasteland had but little, but what it never lacked for was orphans. "I'm hired gun," I said. Goddess, would she please stop staring at me? I didn't want this, but I was hired for a job, and damn it, I had to see it to the end. I mean, if Spitshine could eke out a living in their gang, Serenity could. It wouldn't be so bad, right? Funny. I thought I was better lying to myself, but I just couldn't make myself believe it. "Where do you come from?" I asked her. Her sad eyes regarded me before turning her head away. "Dice." Was it nice there? I tried to smile at her, to reassure her everything was going to be all right. "No." I woke up at what I assumed to be noon, though I couldn't really tell with the sun hidden behind the clouds. I rolled to my hubs, smiling as I realized the rain had finally stopped. Ripping off the cover to my leg, I trotted over to Serenity, poking her with said prosthetic. Groaning, the filly rolled over. "Get up," I said. We had a schedule to meet. "Now," I punctuated my statement with another poke to the gut. Finally she opened her eyes and gasped. "Oh my gosh!" Jumping to her feet, she walked under me and weaved between my legs as she circled my prosthetic. "A Series 19B model cybernetic leg with a custom leg extender. I'd never seen a working model before. Wow!" Great. Apparently my leg was out-of-date tech. "These were the height of technology back before the war. Some purists say they're still the best for their customization." "Custom at what?" "You like this sort of thing?" I asked. She stopped dead in her tracks and turned her head to me. In an instant, the jubilation in her eyes fell to a dead gloom. My face does that to fillies. More so to fillies I'm about to sell to a raider band of questionable integrity. "Yes." Her eyes fell to the ground. There's no point pressing the issue. Of course she hated me. For such a cute little thing, she managed to hate as well as the best of them. I deserved it. The road was long, winding, and filled with rocks. The only sounds were breathing, hoofbeats, the metal clang of my leg, and my radio. A DJ must have been sick or sleepy, as it was just the same series of maybe a dozen songs playing on repeat. Not bad songs per se, but without his voice to break them up, their repetition got a bit irritating. not to mention how much I loved that voice of his. "What's that?" a small voice asked so suddenly I nearly jumped. I spun quickly to see she was staring at a small wooden door chiseled into the side of a sheer cliff. Trotting a bit closer, I poked at the door with my metal hoof. It looked familiar. I was sure I'd seen a door like this before. I rested my hoof on the door. "A stable," I said. I was sure of it. Stable 42 had a door like this that led to the main stable and its great cog-like barrier. Another stable. Goddess, I hated these things. I had only known one in my whole life, and it had been where everything that could have gone wrong did. So here stood another, in the middle of what might have been my biggest moral failing, mocking me. I could hear Wildfire whisper to me, telling me how wrong I was. I shook my head violently. Wildfire was dead, and I might remind myself she died doing the right thing, and if I was so eager to join her in the grave, following her example would make that happen. Sure as I could spit, running now would just get us killed. Fuck it. I was hired to do a job, for good or ill. I was going to finish the damn job. "A stable," I said again. I set my hoof back down. "Let's go." We got to the meeting place a few hours late, the crest of a small hill beset with rocks. 2 great hunks of stone were positioned on either side of the hill, each with a sniper trained on me. Maybe he didn't trust me. Across the way came trotting up Silver Bullet, his brown coat as dirty as his soul. Trotting by his side was the mare I knew as Bloody Dagger.
You're late.
Oh, good. He can tell time. Whatever, I said. His face showed the slightest hint of a smile. On his flank, I could see his gray chain cutie mark showing proudly. Stomping for a second, he looked to one of the rocks where a sniper stood, and then to the other. Subtle, real subtle.
Where is she?
I sidestepped, showing off Serenity. My heart wrenched for her. Rarely it did. She was lying on the ground and visibly shaken, with her yellow and red splotched hair covering her eyes. Tears fell from beneath her hair, splashing into the dirt. Celestia, what was I doing? Walking behind her, I gently touched her shoulder. "It's time," I said. From one cell to the next. To Serenity's credit, she wiped her eyes dry, got up on all fours, and trotted slowly over to Silver Bullet's side. Her gray eyes were fixed on me, though, begging me. But a deal was a deal, and would be until I got paid. "You never told me," I said.
Didn't think it mattered.
He tilted his head quizzically. Beside him, Bloody Dagger just stared at me. Apparently she had never gotten over me laughing at Spitshine once. Spitshine. Yeah, I'm sure her and Serenity could be friends.
A package is a package. Don't matter how it's wrapped.
If I told you just then I realized he was a slaver, I hope you don't think me any stupider than usual. It all made sense. He'd claimed his group had turned raider, and there was his cutie mark. It looked so much like the chain that bound Serenity to the floor. I should have realized it then. In my mind, I imagined Nanny Jane as a middler who was asking too many caps and had to be taken care of, or a rival slaver. My mind tried to justify killing Nanny Jane, but in my heart it wasn't justifiable. When I took a job, she was a shop owner. Whatever came out after my shot didn't matter. I shook my head. I would have done it again in a heartbeat, if only the package was different. "Caps," I demanded, and dutifully he threw me a small bag. Catching it in my mouth, I shook it lightly, not putting it into my bag before I heard that lovely jingle-jangle sound. The price of freedom. The cost of a small pony's life. I should have asked for more. Nothing was worth this. Becoming a slave.
Good?
I nodded.
We're done here.
"Wait!" Idiot. I just had to open my big dumb mouth. I didn't even wait until the 3 had turned away, like the cliche. I just blurted it out right away. Stupid. I made it sound like I cared, as if somehow this next question actually mattered. "So we're even. I'm free. Job's over, right?" Oh, the laughter in his eyes made me want to tear one out and show it to the other.
Huh? Yeah, of course. You done your job good, Gun. If you're ever in the area needing some work, I'm sure I can find something for you.
Like attack a peaceful caravan, drag screaming foals away from their mothers, maybe whip a slave or two when I had the free time. Oh yeah, I'd be back. That look in his eyes, the way he looked back to Serenity but quickly snapped his head back to me. Was he getting nervous? Suspicious? Was he afraid I was going to do something stupid? Really, he didn't know me at all. I did the job for him as hired gun, but even she would have balked at a job that involved Philly slaves, but she didn't know. Still, I agreed to do the job, so I had to complete it. In the future, I'd ask for more details. I gave him my very best smile, but it didn't seem to reassure him. If I'm ever in the neighborhood, I stretched out for a second. One more question. Go on. Impatient as always, just like a stallion. What will you do with the filly? A brief moment of panic washed over his face. I might sell her to the moon. Some clientele will pay extra coin for a filly in their He never got a chance to finish a sentence on account of the bullet ripped into his head, turned his brain to mush, and exploded out the back. The voice in my head screamed, "Survive!" But fuck it. Some things are worth dying for. As the brown corpse of Silver Bullet fell into a heap, I quickly grabbed the grenade I pilfered from Nanny Jane. Run, I mouthed to the scared little filly before kicking it across the yard into one of the giant rocks flanking us. The snipers fired simultaneously to the sound of my explosion. Fire lanced up my leg as one bullet pierced it. The second I heard bounce harmlessly away. The rock, it seemed, was precariously positioned, and the explosion was enough to send it toppling over, the sniper along with it. I would have heard the crunch as the pony was crushed under what used to be his perch, if not for the deafening smash the rock made upon landing. My leg nearly gave out. I could feel the blood run down my leg, staining my silver coat a rusted brown. I gripped my teeth and kept moving. I didn't have time to feel pain. My eyes met that of the second sniper. I was quicker shot, though. In less than a quarter of a second after biting into my battle saddle, I saw a red hole explode through his chest. The pony wobbled, unsure of what had happened, and fell from his perch, landing in a mangled heap. One left. "Watch out!" Serenity called. Funny, I could have sworn I told her to run. Instead of watching, I dropped my belly to the ground. It was the last thing Bloody Dagger was expecting as she tripped over my body, landing with a deep thud my ringing ears could barely recognize. I got back up on all fours, ignoring the pain raging in my leg. There before me was the body of Bloody Dagger, her knife spinning away from her. "Don't move!" My gun was pointed at her head. At this range, it had turned Silver Bullet's face into soup, a fact I was sure she was aware of. "Go on, bitch, pull the trigger!" she spat. Pleasant. It also made what I was about to do that much stupider. "No!" Sighing, I backed up, nearly bumping into Serenity, who must have been as confused as Bloody there. "You live." "What? Are you fucking retarded cunt or something? Fuck! Let me live and I'll—" "Nothing. Follow me with any force and you die." "What the fuck? You killed Bully, you fucktard. Only thing would stop them from tearing Spitshine apart, so if you fucking think—" "I want you to take Spitshine and run. To the villages, change your name. Your cutie mark, whatever." "You're fucking serious, aren't you?" Her eyes narrowed at me, unsure of her own words. What the fuck?" "I have a soft spot for orphan fillies and broken things. Take your filly and leave. You keep playing raider." I sighed. This was too much. Why couldn't she just take my offer? It was too generous already without her bitching about every little thing I said. I hate talking with raiders. "I'll kill you." We matched glares for a second. Then she nodded. "Serenity, take her weapons." Even if she wasn't going to run, she could at least make herself useful. Dutifully, the little filly untied Bloody Dagger's battle saddle. Motioning for Serenity to keep the battle saddle, it could bring a pretty penny, she stuffed it into my saddlebags as I turned to Bloody Dagger. "Take your knife and go." My leg collapsed out from under me, sending me face first into the dirt. I attempted to swear, spitting out dirt. Blood completely soaked my foreleg and dyed it a rusted brown. In retrospect, I should have bound it up to stop the bleeding before hiking across endless wasteland of dirt and rocks. Gritting my teeth, I tried to force myself to my feet. Pain lanced up my leg and into my chest. I flopped back down. Resting it was. I groaned and poked at the wound with my metal hoof. More pain lanced through me, making me feel nauseous. "It looks infected." Serenity stood beside my leg, inspecting it. When her head turned to regard me, I couldn't help but notice her eyes no longer had that sad and morose look. Instead, she looked confused, maybe, or tentative. "Why didn't you bind it?" "Why? Because, my dear, I'm an idiot." "Had better things to do, like saving your life." "What? You can't be serious. A bullet wound is dangerous. Do you know what an infected wound could do? For a little thing, she sure was talkative now. I looked at my metal leg and smiled at her. I was pretty sure I knew the effects of infected wounds, though I doubted this one was nearly as serious. She bent over my leg, frowning at the bloody wounds. So close to subclavian artery. Not good. Gonna have to remove the bullet. She was ranting and walking around me like she had just ate a whole bowl of sugar. Why? I asked. Most time bullet ain't dangerous. More dangerous to take 'em out. Well, with the poking around you gotta do. But from that shot, it could wander and puncture an important artery. Could bleed out inside. What? You know this how? I asked. Humph. She stopped, raising a hoof dramatically to her chest. I was an apprentice medic with the Watchers before. The word choked in her throat, but she shook it off. There were other fillies and colts when I was taken. Some were wounded, but I helped them. And then... Her tiny face scrunched up, and she kicked at the ground with both hooves. Groaning, I eased myself up. Pain shot through my body, but I kept to my hooves. In my bag. Pills. Hand me one. My shoulder burned as Serenity levitated a single small blue pill out. It was chalky and hard to swallow, but as soon as I managed it, the pain in my leg faded to a dullness. Med-X in pill form. It came in injections too, but either way, it was insanely useful. It was a shame I couldn't only pill for a few from Nana Jane. The stable, I remembered suddenly. We had been walking back the way we had come. I had planned to skip around Bridal Hope. On the small dirt road my pit buck showed that led to the main highway on the other side of a huge mountain that rose in between Bridal Hope and Daesh. From there I hoped to find some point to take in Serenity, but with my new information I would drop her off with the Watchers at Daesh when I went to see them. Dr. Merwin said he was to take me to see them, so I figured I would go myself and see if there were any caps in it for me. First things first, though. We reached the wooden door in the cliffside just as Celestia's tears began to fall anew. With a single kick of my metal leg, the rotten wood turned to splinters. A few more kicks, and it was nothing more than a hole. It wasn't locked, Serenity said with a sly smile on her face. Rolling my eyes, I continued into the cave. It was dark, almost too dark. I found my metal leg tripping over rocks, nearly sending me sprawling more than once. The painkillers ran out as we reached the huge cog-like door of the stable. From the looks of it, the door had long since been rolled away, to the point it looked rusted to the metal floor of the stable. Groaning, I nearly collapsed, but held strong. There was a floor in front of the small stairs that led to the stable proper, and beside the door control device I saw a rusted brown bloodstain. In my mind's eye it was wildfires, the two stables so similar. This way, I said and limped up the stairs. 3 doors. I'd been here before. I took the center one as the lights overhead flickered and waned. Honestly, I was surprised the power was on at all, or at least it would have been if I had not been able to think about anything but my leg. Getting shot sucked. And this wasn't the first time I got shot. It was the first time I'd taken a high caliber round to bare skin. The wound stank. Maybe that was the stable. I froze at the intersection where I once bucked Pone to death. Are you okay? A small voice asked. Great, now she was worrying about me. I grunted and kept on, rounding the corner. All the stables were the same, some pony told me once, so I knew where to find the clinic. I walked past the spot where I once stabbed a pony in the head with the hot barrel of my gun. I shuddered. The whole place just seemed so quiet. The last stable had ponies running and screaming, and there was something else I couldn't put my hoof on. In this stable, the only sounds was my hushed breath and the whirling of the lights overhead. Creepy. Here, I groaned, pointing to the medic door. Thankfully, it was the same as Stable 42, so maybe my adventures there wasn't a complete waste disaster. Of course, if I had never gone to Stable 42, I'd never be here in Stable. Did you see what stable this is? I asked. Stable 123, the door said. Stable 123. I pushed on the door to the clinic, and it slid open with a reliable whoosh. The white room on the other side looked half a mess. Waste baskets were knocked over, spilling used syringes across the floor, and the huge medical cabinet was lying on its back, completely empty. Of the 2 examination tables, one was broken in half, but the other was standing upright and only slightly stained. So much for a sterile environment. Everything had been looted multiple times by the looks, well, except for a yellow and pink box hanging off the side of a white wall. I limped to the box, poking at it. Locked. Great. I could pick the lock, Serenity said, standing on her hind legs to reach it, if I had a bobby. I smashed it. I placed my metallic hoof back on the ground as the medical box creaked open. Or not. Serenity was rolling her eyes at me. I didn't care. Mission accomplished. Let's see. 2 healing potions, a Rad-X, a bottle of purified water, and some tweezers. Serenity gathered the supplies with magic, sending that stupid burning sensation through my shoulder again. I was never going to get used to that. Okay, let's get started. She seemed a bit too excited for open surgery. She picked up a stool from the ground and placed it by the examination table, motioning for me to get on. The whole thing creaked under my considerable weight, but held firm. Stretching out the offending leg, she peered over it, a grin on her face. This may sting. With a wisp of magic, she poured the water directly into my open wound and got to cleaning it, with a rag she apparently kept with her. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I nodded at her. She licked her lips in anticipation as she floated the tweezers above my open wounds. I took a deep breath. It took a few seconds after the tweezers went in for the pain to register. It was nearly blinding. I bit my lip to hold back the pain and very nearly bit right through. The magically powered tweezers dug into my open wound, digging and clawing until eventually she pulled them out, holding a bullet shell with a mushroom tip. Hollow point, I said through my teeth. No wonder the wound hurt so much. The bastard hit me with a .308 caliber hollow point round. It was a miracle I didn't bleed out. Hollow what? She was a smart little filly, so I was a bit surprised that she didn't know that. It's a type of bullet, expands going in for massive damage. Little filly seemed to be contemplating that as her gray eyes assessed the damage to my leg above my pit book. Cleaning the wound a bit more, she looked around. Need bandages. Even with the healing potions, it should be bandaged up as well, you know. Healing potions are good, my master always said, but healing spells plus some good old TLC's even better. Besides, I've heard stories of them what think they can drink a couple dozen healing potions and be fine, but later die of lead poisoning because they didn't treat them wounds good enough. Healing potions aren't magic. Well, okay, they are magic, but magic can't solve all your problems, says the unicorn to the earth pony. The static from my pickbuck boomed as Serenity bound up my leg with bandages I still had from Stable 42. The DJ's voice played over the radio and was handsome as ever, but lost something with the interference being in the middle of a mountain caused.
This is paradise in the West, causing trouble for the NCA. Getting in range created no good. NCA say they will stop the music. I growled at the thing and turned the radio off. There was no point if I could barely understand what he was saying. Finally finished with the bandages, Serenity jumped down off her stool and looked up at me. There, now go get some rest. You look awful. I must have. My mane stuck to my forehead with sweat. I felt too light and too heavy at the same time. It had been a long couple of days, and that nap earlier really hadn't been all that satisfying. Can't. Gotta move. No buts, you're sick, she said. Can't leave you alone here, I countered. What? Don't be silly, silly. You've done way more than enough. More than I could ever hope for, so it's my turn. You rest, okay? I can't just let you walk around all sick and injured. I had done as little as equinely possible, but I was much too fatigued to say so I nodded dumbly. Fine, just don't wander off. I closed my eyes and almost immediately fell to sleep. Tain't nothing here, I tells you. Tain't nothing. My eyes flittered open, the sound of voices drowning out the gentle humming of the lights. Told you there wouldn't be. And here we are neck deep in raider territory, and you're telling me to look harder. I didn't recognize the accent or the buck what spoke with it. Groaning, I rolled to my side towards the sounds. Keep looking. We go back empty-hoofed and we won't have enough to eat, the second voice said. Another stallion, but more refined. Probably grew up in the city. I told you 'tain't nothing here. You think you was the first that thought to look in this stable? I thought maybe we'd find something the others picked over. You just got us trapped in raider country, and both of you shut up! A mare snapped, her voice a shrill whip. Well, what do we have here? A filly. Serenity. Jumping off the bed, I suddenly remembered where I was. Hey, where do you think you're going? I heard metallic hoof steps outside my door as Serenity turned and ran, but only a half a second as the sound quickly vanished. Well, follow her. Sound the filly in this trip may actually be worth something. I tain't no slaver. The door slid open. No, you're not, I said as I glowered down at them, standing up straight to show my true height.
The mare was a tiny little thing with a comically oversized rifle strapped to her back. She reminded me of Lie, except she was a Nerf pony with a teardrop cutie mark. "What? Who are you? What do you think you're doing?" The colloquial stallion spoke. His coat and mane were both a deep black, with a desperado hat of a similar color atop his head, covering what must have been a horn as my shoulder burned and the shotgun on his back started to glow ever so slightly. "You're an idiot, Philly," the third spoke. I could barely see his coat with the heavy armor barden and large helmet he wore, but in between the cracks I thought I saw stripes. "3 against 1, you're unarmed, and," his head turned to my bandaged leg, "injured." I stretched back, tensing my muscles, growling a bit. "Don't have to." I spoke to the mare with the teardrop cutie mark. "I can kill one. Thing is," I grunted as pain from my leg lanced through my body. "It wasn't as bad as before, not nearly." "Y'all don't know which one," I said. I'd seen these types before working at Marefort. Scavengers and traders who had no love for each other, but stuck together out of protection. They'd kill for each other, but not die. The pure black stallion was the first to back off. Dipping his desperado hat over his eyes and easing the magic on his shotgun, he stepped back. "'Tain't no way I'm a-dying for this. 'Tain't no slaver, never have been, and ain't dying to start." "Coward," the armored stallion said, stepping up. "She's just trying to scare you. No way she could kill one of us. She doesn't have a single fucking weapon on her."
True,
the black unicorn replied, "but I seen them augmented freaks 'fore. One stomped my ma's head to mush and one try." I stomped a pony's head to mush before I even got my metal leg, but I kept that to myself. "Might be that fancy arm to keep you safe. Might be it won't. She looked big enough to bend steel." Snap changed anyway. The mare tried a different method. "How much for the filly?" she whinnied. "Your head," I said flatly. "Nothing then." The teardrop mare looked at me and then at her two comrades. "We could kill you and take her." "I ain't doing nothing like that," the black unicorn interjected. "You could try," I answered the mare, who was obviously the leader. "It's not worth it," the armored stallion said finally. "Fillies don't bring as much as colts. Even if we kill this one, no way she goes down without a fight. No matter what, we'll be at a loss." "Sure, you could just tell yourself that." "Good. Leave my stable," I said. The teardrop mare looked ready to argue, but she turned at the stomp of my metal hoof. The huge metal one with stripes under his armor stopped to glare, before vanishing around the corner. 3 ponies scared away at only the threat of violence. No laziness may have played a part. I stared down the hall they left for a good minute before remembering. Serenity. Fuck. I didn't bother running the way I assumed she went. Instead, I strode casually down the hallway, limping all the way. If I remember correctly, this hallway led downstairs into the atrium. From there, I could pretty much get anywhere in the stable. By themselves, these massive structures were all just metal and concrete and not entirely dangerous. My real concern was her getting stuck somewhere. I started down the steps. I couldn't help sensing something wrong. Maybe it was the smell of the stale air or the annoying humming of the lights. It just felt unnatural. These stables were built to save ponies' lives, but it seemed to me not their spirits. Even when compared to my brown wasteland, these tombs seemed ready-made to suck the soul out of any pony would have entered. How could ponies live in such a place so gray? "Serenity!" I called, sounding unnatural loud as I got to the bottom of the metal stairs and into the concrete hallway. Above me hung a dark yellow sign, Atrium. Deja vu again. If I could burn down every stable, I would. God, that's how I hated these places. Instead of heading down the same path I took in stable 42, I veered off to a side room. The small room looked very much like what I would expect of an office. What a stable needed with an office, I really couldn't say. A tall cabinet had been thrown down, spilling its contents across the ground. An ample supply of wonder glue and blank paper, but nothing of real worth. I hopped over and made my way to the single desk, with the terminal still glowing. I poked at the thing with my hoof. I may have jumped back when the damn thing beeped at me. Leaning closer once again, I prepared my fragile heart for beeping. In my defense, I had never seen a working terminal, much less used one. The controls were finicky and undoubtedly made for a unicorn's magic, but I did manage to scroll through a list of journal entries. 3 of the 4 were marked in red, so for once in my life, my curiosity got the better of me, and I opened them in order. Journal entry, Day 360. Doc says I should use this terminal to write down my feelings and stuff. Says I'm too mopey and should find myself a mare and start a family. Why? I mean, we've been here a year, and it looks like we'll be here for much longer. The hall lights hurt my head, and everything smells. The government never should have aligned with those equestrian fools. They provoke the lion, but we're the ponies what get mauled. Isn't fair. But Stable Tech promised that these stables would save us. They didn't, though. No, Equestria killed us. Stable Tech built our coffin. I am never leaving. Not sure I would if they offered. I hate this place. I hate the lights, and the floor, and everything. I hate the way the basement leaks when it rains and fills the whole place with the slightest scent of radiation. But I wouldn't leave. I saw the outside world and what it offered. Ponies should stay down here and just live out their lives. Our race should end for what it did, what those equestrians made us do. Nah, we're still procreating. The first foal of the new world was born today. Cute little thing, born to live and die, all in darkness, with the ever-present consequences of their mother's and father's failures pressing down on them. With the memory of war and death the only thing they'll ever know. Does that sound fair? Whatever. Doc doesn't know shit. I'm not moping, just telling it like it is. World is burnt. Our race is buried. We killed the world, and now live in it. Does that sound fair? Well, that sounded bad. I clicked to the next marked entry. Journal entry, day 10,925. Nearly 30 years and I still haven't figured out how to change the automatic journal names. I'm too old for this. Something big is going to happen soon. I can feel it in my bones. Outside, the rains have been going on non-stop for weeks now, and the overstallion is worried. Can't say I blame him none. Most of us here remember the war, and most saw the green flames wash over Celestia's paradise as we ran. From miles away, it was impossible to miss. We saw the world end, and now, this talk. I hear it. The kids want to go outside, see the world, but they don't understand. The world is dead. We killed it. The overstallion understands this, but public pressure will break him like it broke her. I'm too old for this. Got nothing much to say but to fill this damn thing with the regrets of an old pony. An old pony who saw the world burn, and now my grandsons and granddaughters plan to prop up its corpse on strings and make it dance. Seem fair? The final entry was not dated. It consisted of a single word. Goodbye. Struck by the words, I turned suddenly to the wall behind me, staring at the splattered, rusted gray stain on the wall. I stepped back. My chest felt tight, and I quickly let out a breath I was holding. It wasn't elegant writing, nothing amazing, but it was real. I know the world ended, but to read the words from a pony who saw it happen, and then he ended himself. Shaking my head, I cleared it. History has not helped me find serenity or survive. Mysteries were nice, but for later. I walked out of the room and back to the hallway. "Serenity!" I called out again, my voice dancing through the hallway into the atrium and echoing back at me. Did all the stables echo so much? Making my way to the atrium, I found my cell in the same place again. The room was the same as it was in Stable 42. A large lower area, though this one looked mussy and strewn with litter and tipped over tables and an upper balcony which connected to various rooms. All in standard stable colors, rusted gray, gray, and gray. Across the gap was the round window leading to the overmare stallion's office. If I squinted my eyes, I could almost see the mark where my spear struck it before bouncing away. Really? This was not the time for flashbacks. I had a filly to find. Shaking the memory out of my head, I tried to remember how it was in the wasteland upon I got into the office. I had run out of one once and found my way to the surface, but I didn't know how to get there. Honestly, it didn't take me that long. A short limping hike through dark, dingy, and as the journal had promised, smelly hallways, I found the door clearly marked Overmayor's office. Strange, I was under the impression it was an overstallion. No matter. If the lights were still on and humming, then likely all the surveillance cameras were too, and I remembered a wall of monitors from the time I kicked Smooth Tongue out a window. Reaching up, I turned the handle. Locked. Good. That mostly meant no pony had bothered to loot the damn thing. A locked door wasn't much of a problem for me, however. Opening doors with a book. It was a wonder no pony else ever thought of it. Or maybe they'd tried and failed. Few ponies were as large as I, and even few were as strong. With my super strength and robotic parts, I wonder if I technically qualified as a superhero. Minus the hero. Whatever. Once again, my intelligence chip had brought my mind to new and disturbing places with its imagination. The room was so similar to the one in 42, it was almost depressing. Though it was notably cleaner and missing the chain that had once bound me to the floor. Everything else, from the wall of monitors to the round desk with a single terminal, was eerily similar. Of course, everything about this place was, so it really shouldn't have come as a surprise. The wall monitors were off, but there had to be a way to fix that. I made my way around the desk. Good, the terminal was still working. With a few clicks, I got it. And as my pitbuck downloaded files without my consent, it started playing something.
Hello, my name is Scootaloo. You probably know me, since I'm pretty famous, for my awesome performances at events like last year's Gallops. Or maybe just as the founder of Red Racer. Actually, you might not. Never did get a foothold into Caledonia. It doesn't matter right now. You're the lucky mare to find herself as Overmare of Stable 123. And I can't say I envy you. You see, we here at Stabletech have a philosophy. The world's turning to shit, I know. But we have to find a way to make it better. And, fuck, you won't like what comes next. You can't stay here. You need to leave. I'm asking this of you. When the radiation goes down to livable levels, leave. Go out and make the world a better place. Fix this fucking mess we caused. You shouldn't get it bad, hopefully. Hopefully you can leave in a year or two. Every stable was made with an idea in mind. Find a way to fix the mistakes. When the other stables come out of hiding, I want there to be a world for them to live in. Yeah, I chose a non-equestrian stable for this reason. Only 6 stables were made outside of Equestria, and this task I made sure was in one of them. We fucked this world up. We can't fix it. Not yet. Not until we're ready. And maybe not even then. So when the time comes, I'm asking you, leave and rebuild the world. If you don't want to, then I'm sorry to say, I'm not giving you a choice. You may have already noticed the basement leaks. It will flood. You may have noticed the smell. The air filter will break down. You may be able to live for 10, 20 years, but you'll eventually have to leave, or every pony will die. Yeah, I'm a fucking monster. But some pony needs to fix up this mess we've caused, and fuck it, I'll make sure they do it whether they want to or not. Download the coordinates and passwords in the terminal. They'll lead you to help. To start, we have a second chance. If it's any consolation, I'm sorry. I never wanted this. Get out there and start rebuilding. Soon every pony else will join you. We'll have learned. I'll make them learn. So this will never happen again. May Celestia bless us all.
The voice faded from the terminal and began to repeat. Well, that was certainly interesting. This Scootaloo pony seemed like a right asshole, but she had a good idea? I'm not sure. Whatever it was she thought she was doing, she clearly cared enough about it to chance hundreds of ponies' lives on it. It didn't matter. Whoever she was dead, and whatever she wanted didn't happen. The past was over, and she lost. Flicking through the terminal with some difficulty, I eventually found the security cam control switch, which had been switched to off. With a press of the hoof, the whole wall behind me powered up. Grinning like an idiot to myself, I scanned the screens. Almost a quarter of the screen showed nothing but a murky wet haze. I guess Scootaloo hadn't been kidding when she said the whole place was going to flood. It didn't take long for me to find a little ball of pink amidst the gray grayness. The camera seemed to suggest she was on a lower level, and the room looked deteriorated, but she looked fine. Curious, though, I saw her inch across into the center of the dilapidated room. The floor cracked. Serenity fell into the murky waters. Trapped. Fuck. How'd the doctor say take this damn thing off? Push this button, wait, think about ice cream. I need a switch or a button or something. There. With a hiss and a snap, my metal leg clanged to the ground. Taking a step, I nearly fell over. Well, that's awkward. Looking at my shoulder, there was still a sheet of metal and electronics where the leg proper could be attached. I hope it was waterproof, but it was worth the risk. It was a half-mad scramble to the lower levels. I quite literally bucked out the window of the Overstallion's office and jumped to the lower atrium instead of wasting time and walking the whole damn way around. Luckily, one of the files my pitbook had downloaded was a stable map, allowing me to descend into the dank and moldy halls without getting lost. Looking down, I could see the frighteningly dirty water where Serenity had fallen. She was nowhere to be seen, though, and if my pit buck was right, the level below was just as large as everywhere else. Who knew where the current could have taken her? I steeled myself, taking one last gulp of air, and then dropped into the cold water. I fell below the waves, water flooding my eyes. It was physically painful to wrench them open to look through the murky water. On my leg, my pit buck made its clicking sound, which I knew couldn't be good, especially not with all the radiation the water must have soaked in. I kicked my legs and sucked in air as soon as my muzzle broke the surface. My invisible leg stung, but it wasn't shocking me, so that was good. Diving back under the water, I spotted the nearby doorway. The only problem was, on the other side, the water flowed to the ceiling. When I tried and failed to surface, I panicked. Lashed out, everything became lost in a murky haze. My heart pounded and my face somehow ended up pressed against the floor. My eyes strained to make heads or tails of the water. My entire world became the murky haze around me and nothing else. For a second, even serenity was forgotten as I struggled with the water. Everything looked green, and I could barely see, but I would be damned if I was going to drown. Shaking my head, I got a sense of the world around me. Dragging my way across the bottom of the sunken tunnel, I ignored the rising urge to breathe. Looking up, I could see a light, something, and I swam for it. The pressure in my chest burned. Fuck, I needed a breath. Air, please let there be. My head slammed against the light. No air. I tried to inhale, but water flooded my throat. Burning. Dying. I needed to breathe. Mercifully, I found a small kink in the ceiling. I surfaced, coughing out water, which burned as much coming out as it did going in. I was here to save serenity, but how? My pit buck kept ticking, and I hadn't any idea what to do, and I had breathed enough water that I felt like a fish. Fuck, this was going bad. Looking down, I could see the bandages on my foreleg unraveling, spilling blood into the water, in case it needed to get any dirtier. Shivering, I took a deep breath and lowered myself back into the drink. Flooded indeed. No wonder the ponies that lived here left. I squirmed through the murky wastes and felt something, a vibration, in the water. I searched around wildly. For a second, something yellow flashed in front of me in the murky water. It vanished. Wait, it was here. Serenity. Kicking with all the might my 3 legs could muster, her form slowly came into view. The vibrating was shaking my whole body, but it was fading. Those sad gray eyes looked at me, and I realized her tail was tangled in a fallen chair, holding her down. Her legs were kicking furiously, and her horn glowed. But when those eyes fell on me, she stopped and smiled. I wanted to scream to her to keep fighting, but she had lost. Who knew how long she'd been down here, lost and afraid? Her mouth opened involuntarily. No, not again. My foreleg wrapped around her body, and my legs kicked, dragging her with me, the chair trailing behind. My shoulder burned, my leg throbbed, and my chest shrieked out in pain from the water I breathed. Faintly, I could still hear my pit buck clicking angrily. I pushed all that away. Pain faded as I saw serenity, the life fading from her. This was no time to feel pain. Now if I could only find the exit. I lashed around, looking. My pit buck clicked, and I glared at it. Just long enough to see the map. Yes, I was a genius. As my chest cried out for air, I pushed towards the direction it told. I had managed to find the stairs. I dragged her up with my mouth, limping along on 3 legs. Dropping her, I leaned down, pressing my mouth to hers. Wildfire had made me practice mouth-to-mouth resuscitation once. Stopping, I put my hoof to her chest and pushed. Nothing. I breathed into her mouth again, tasting metal. Not a good sign. My hoof pressed against her chest. Breathe, I grunted. Breathe, damn it. She coughed up water and breathed. I collapsed beside her as my pit buck flashed a warning. It was then that I remembered. I didn't know how to swim. You saved me, I heard Serenity say. We didn't fall asleep there, or rather I didn't, but I did lie there a while, taking stock of my wounds. I hadn't even fought anything this time, and it hurt worse than when the raiders attacked my caravan. Groaning, I rolled to face her. Yeah, my throat burned just talking. Who knew water could be so painful?
Why?
Couldn't let you drown. I coughed a bit. I painfully moved my pit buck in front of my eyes. According to this, I had minor rat poisoning. I'd seen ponies die of rat poisoning back in Merefort. All their hair fell out, and they lived in pain, vomiting profusely and shitting blood before dying. Not a good way to go.
No,
her voice sounded weak.
before, you were gonna sell me.
And he saved me. No pony ever saved me. Why? Well, that was a stupid question. I did sell you. For 800 caps, a new gun, and my freedom. A good deal, I thought once. And after the deal was done, I killed him. So, you didn't kill him till your deal was done? Of course not. I made an agreement, and I wasn't about to back out like that. It wasn't the way I ran things. But still, why'd you kill him? You planned to sell me? No, I said, because he was an ass. Ugh. I rolled to my hooves. Well, most of them. I need to find my leg, I said, and hobbled off. Walking with 3 legs, I should mention, is insanely difficult. I had to rear up and stretch forward, then scoop my back legs up, all while Serenity, sick as she was, managed to giggle at me. Lucky for me, the room Serenity fell from wasn't far away. I lifted my dead metal leg in my mouth, impressed with the weight. When it was moving me around, it hadn't seemed quite so heavy. Not caring, I quickly slammed the connector into its port of my shoulder, and screeched. My whole body convulsed, and I dropped to the ground as the nerve endings forcibly connected, crying foul. It had only lasted half a second, but it felt like minutes of my whole body being dropped in boiling water. Gasping as the connection finished, I could feel my leg move. Why the fuck didn't the doctor warn me about that? Are you okay? Serenity said by the doorway. Grunting and nodding, I hoisted myself to my hooves. Never felt better, I said. Nothing like a near-death experience to wake you up in the morning, afternoon, whatever. Bending over, I grabbed my saddlebag from where I left it and tossed it over my back. Get some rataways from my pack, I said. My shoulder burned with renewed fury as the pink filly took out the medicine. It tasted bitter and made me gag, but it was better than being, poisoned. Eventually we dragged our bodies back up to the infirmary, neither really talking much. Nothing else to say, I guess. When I looked at her eyes, she didn't look sad anymore. Instead, her gray eyes seemed very nearly happy, or at least the close approximation she could get while still keeping that sad orphan filly vibe. What's your name? She asked me. Hired gun. I was sure she already knew, but didn't bother protesting. It was much more profitable to collapse on the ground on my bedroll. Your real name? Ah, I smacked my head against the floor. It is my real name. Liar, she giggled, lying beside me, her head resting on me. Great, now she was all cuddly. Why can't kids be consistent? Where I come from, ponies get 2 names, I said. One when they're born, and another they can choose after they get their cutie mark. Wildfire was born as Cakewalk, and changed it as soon as equinely possible, and I always knew my brother as Meadow, but Smooth called him Summer Silk. What a stupid name. Oh, can I change my name when I get my cutie mark? She grinned up at me. I have no idea why she was asking my permission. I just saved her life, twice, but it didn't make me her mother, so I didn't answer. Instead, I poked at my pit book, thinking Luna these things were waterproof, until one of the audio files I had managed to download started to play. As it started to play, I realized that maybe I should have waited until Serenity wasn't around.
God, it's start coming. Fuck, I gotta keep a record. They won't. Fuckers won't know how to delete this. When Stable Tech comes, I want them to know. I want them to know I tried. Fuck, I did, but they're afraid. It's been, 18 years? Every pony remembers. How could they forget? They saw the world burn, but they don't get it. The leaks are getting worse, and ponies are gonna start getting sick soon. The world outside, it's dead, but not dying. The Geiger counter says we can live outside, but they're afraid. Shit, not much time. They're gonna kill me. Fuck, I lived too long. But we need to get out of this place before it kills us. They won't listen. They're afraid. Scared enough to kill. Why the fuck did Stable Tech give us so many Celestia damn guns? Door's breaking. Yeah, I'm one dead mare. And they know it. Fuck, I lived too long. I'm trying to save them, and they're too blind. Shit!
The recording ended with a crash and a howling wail. I'm not sure what was worse, the fact she was killed for being right, or the fact that those that killed her would create the hellhole known as the Daesh Wasteland. Footnote: Level up. New perk: Intense training. Level up perception by 1. Skill note: Speech 25.